All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here. I'm glad that you guys hopped on. And when I say that, I mean, I always mean it, but I just feel like I mean it extra today because we've got the #1 all-time producer in FFL history that's joined us today to really unpack and break down exactly what it takes to go out there and level up your production. There's no better person to listen to that's gone out there and they've really just 10x what the average person might accomplish. They've actually 10x what the other IMO's top producer probably does. And so today, guys, I'm excited to be able to kind of ask some questions, to lean in, to take some notes, and for you guys to hear from my good buddy, Steve Giordano. Steve, good afternoon, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor to be on with you.
Man, it's good to have you on, bro. So just so everybody knows, because when I say that, I'm like, he's #1 producer, many years with Family First Life. You got the belt to prove it, right? Like how much volume was that, dude? Like what is that annually?
Yeah, it was about 1.3 2 years ago, 1.4 this past year, and I'm at over almost 1 million this year so far. I'll hit it probably this week.
That is phenomenal, man. The crazy thing is like everything different people and circumstances will give some perspective. Like, dude, I thought I was killing it, man. I was out there helping, writing 400,000 a year, top producer. Like, dude, I'm crushing it. And then Giordano comes on and he's doing that in like 2 months, So it's and that's the thing, dude. Like for one, I'm 100% sure your financial situation looks really good given that kind of volume. But dude, you've made such a positive impact on the belief level that everybody has coming on board, because now that standard is gone up to like, man, he can do this. So maybe I can go out there and do more. And so I appreciate you, working that relentlessly and tirelessly and consistently to go out there and show that kind of level of performance and production, man. It's a big deal. And so let's unpack it, man. The first question I've got for you is, when it comes to your personal sales, what do you think's been the biggest change that caused you from going from, where you weren't hitting that million mark a year, maybe you're doing 200, 300, 400,000, to jumping up to that? Like, what was the biggest shift that took place for you to really kind of take your production and go up, 5, 10x?
Yeah, I think at the time, if you look at that going into the second year is when I hit that. I looked at my lead mix and the lead flow and the diversity, and also starting to, in addition, ask for more applications in the house, try and help, the husband, the wife, the grandma, the grandkids, kind of looking at your book of business and kind of working your book of business. And I just started to try and think about what are other ways that I can increase the lead flow, diversify the lead flow, and start asking more questions. And I also started trying to fix more problems for people, where you could get people, hey, I don't have a retirement, I can get you an IUL, and I can also get you like the term or the whole or whatever. So started thinking along those lines, and all of that stuff really started adding up.
I love that, dude. So a couple things. Lead flow, you adjusted, right? When you say you adjusted it, what were you investing prior? And then what did you change that to when you went out there and started helping, that kind of, doing $1 million a year with production?
Yeah, I was probably at, prior to that first year, I was probably at about 1,500 a week. And then I just bumped it up to 25 because I kind of, the belief level was there, right? Like if I look at my trajectory, first year is about 700, and, I'm obviously doing well, but I'm like, all right, if I can do this in a month, if I can now spend 10, maybe 11,000 in leads and 10x the money and write on average 100 a month, like, boom, why not? And it also takes, to me, the pressure off, because you have so many leads that you don't care so much about, oh, this one's not interested, this one's not this one's not that. You're just kind of moving on, and it makes everything easier, and you stop wasting time on the people that aren't going to buy. You know what I mean? Like, you only have time for the people that are going to buy, and you have so many of them.
I love that, dude. And I think you're exactly right. I think when people get too emotional because they get a no, that emotion is typically tied to scarcity. I don't have enough people, therefore I feel like I might lose because I just lost this one dial. And it's a big deal to be able to stack the deck where you're in a position where you don't have emotion tied to it. I would always, in my mind, think like, if they said no, like, slide on over. I got another family to call. I got another person to call. No big deal. And then it would keep me with the right belief system that maybe this person's having a one-off day. Maybe this person's going through, a random day. Maybe they don't see me the right way, right? But I give that as the justification of why they didn't book the appointment, not this lead isn't any good, or
Yeah.
this just doesn't work out. And that's such a big deal, because the moment you pick up the belief, like this lead is this, or these clients are just this, or this kind of family is just this, the moment you do that, man, you're down the path to failure, right? And it's
100%.
all going to be birthed out of that belief system. So I agree 100%, man. Now, the other part of that is it sounded like you started to evolve as a producer. Like you started to take your skill set and get better, opposed to just going in and serving that client that had asked for help. You started to find other opportunities, other problems, like you said, that you could provide solutions to. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit? Like, how did you learn, and what did that exactly look like? Is there certain things that you said to be able to write additional policies on friends or family, or referrals or reviews? Like, kind of unpack a little bit of the things that you tweaked and adjusted as you built your skill set to become a better overall producer.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said there is probably what I always lean on, which is I don't care how good you are, you always have to strive to be better, right? If you look at a top athlete, I was just watching the Bulls Michael Jordan documentary, right? Obviously greatest of all time, right? He constantly wanted to get better, and he was trying to figure out how he could. So for me, as I've kind of gone on this journey here as a personal producer, I'm like, okay, who can I listen to hear something? If it's you, if it's Matt Smith, to trigger what to say better in a house and better connect with someone, right? Obviously, the lead flow is a big piece of the mix, but I started just like, there's a book, Think and Grow Rich, right? And you're thinking, what are different things that I can do to be better every day? And if you get 1% better every day over time, it's going to add up exponentially. So I started also in homes, I started listening better, right? When it comes to solving problems, the only way you know the problem is by shutting up and listening to what they're actually giving to you. By doing that and then having, crazy activity, that stuff just really started adding up to a lot more premium, and a lot more, families really protected at the end of the day.
Dude, I love that, man. The 1% more. I think if everybody can understand like how that compound effect is so essential to grow and develop your business as a producer, it's a big deal. You don't have to transform everything tomorrow, but can you get a little bit better? And for me, Steve, like I did the same thing. I was always thinking about the next thing to say, that word track I heard. I need to say that after they say this. And because I wasn't listening, a lot of times I was trying to find the words to say that were addressing a smokescreen objection, and it wasn't even the root problem, because I wasn't aware of the root problem, because I wasn't listening to what the root problem was. And you can't defeat what you can't define. So the first step is to listen to a level where you can be aware of it. And then if your intention is to serve them, then you can find the solution and move forward from there. And so I love that, man. I think that's a big, big deal. So when it comes to going out there and helping clients at a big level, like you're out there. I mean, dude, I told Casey this. He said, "Man, is Steve still writing that kind of volume?" And Casey's the one behind the camera. I'm like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, "That's like more than most IMOs." I'm like, "Who are you telling, bro?" Yeah, you just acquired an IMO if you got Steve on your team. So, when you're doing that, like, is there a lot to be said? In fact, let me ask you this way: being in the zone, right? You're talking about Michael Jordan and in that documentary. Like there was times where, dude, he just could not miss because he was in the zone, dude. Like it was just like, it made him, the momentum in the zone made him look twice as good as he probably might even been at the time. But then there was times where, just like any athlete, dude, you can fall out of the zone, lose momentum. And you're like, dude, how's that person playing in the NBA? Well, I mean, because the lack of momentum in zone makes them look half as good as they actually are. So can you talk about, that level of activity that you put in, the benefits, and maybe that zone that it puts you in that might be unseen, where you actually go out and help more families, book more appointments, have a higher close ratio, because you're simply in the zone. Can you kind of talk about that and how you've seen that play true for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me from an activity perspective that I love to preach and look at is we're all not that good, but we are that good, the top producers that no matter what happens, no matter how many losses they have in a row, they stack that deck so big, and they focus so heavily on how many leads, how many dials, how many appointments, how many door knocks, how much crazy activity they have. It keeps you in that zone, even if you went 0 for 5 and then started selling, because you're in the zone of the activity zone. And that most people, if they had enough activity in this company with the way the leads are, would be top producers. Like, let's just face facts. Yes, there's some nuance. Yes. Is everybody a Paul McLean? No. Is everybody a me or whoever? Of course, there's some things obviously that we do and whatever, but we're not crazy special. But you have that activity. So to me, I always have a pit in my stomach around how much activity I have, because I know if I have that, one, I'm going to be able to get that momentum. And two, if I start losing, I can get the momentum back quick. I'm not relying on one appointment or two appointments to do it. I'm relying on, here's some appointments. Now, if we're talking virtual or hybrid, here's call transfers. Here's one call closes. Here's my book of business I can go call. I legit have a list in my phone throughout the day, client and agent side of the list. And it's like, bang, call this one, call this one, call this one, call this one. And it's just nonstop. And that helps you mentally, because the minute you start losing and get out of the zone, a win is there. There's a win in the list. I might lose 7 of them, but I'm going to find the win. It's going to make me feel good, get me back on track, and keep it moving.
Dude, that I love that answer. That was that was so good, man, because you see the same thing in a game where, like, dude, they lose momentum, right? This team loses momentum, and then all of a sudden, the team that's getting after and they don't drop their activity level, all of a sudden the team that was just, lost the 20 unanswered, it shifts around. And now that team goes 20 unanswered. You're like, what the heck? You're like, you know what I mean? Where the team goes 20 and then it flips. Well, that typically happens when the team that just got whooped on doesn't stop the activity. They still make the press. They still make the run. They still dig deep. And that's exactly what you're saying, Steve. Like, dude, you don't drop and respond to that bad run by dropping your level of activity. You increase the level of activity, you keep getting after it, and you know that there's a win right there around the corner. Once that win happens, now momentum can start building again, and building in the right way, because you're just giving it all you've got nonstop. Dude, that's a big, big deal, because I do believe a lot of good producers never become great because they respond the wrong way when they have a bad week. They drop their level, they invest less in leads, they're not as intense, they don't believe or expect to win at the same clip, opposed to just saying, I'm going to not think, or I'm not going to give myself a chance to think, because my schedule is so full of doing that I can't even think, man. I just got to call the next person, call the next person, call the next person. And you're just getting after it. Steve, can you talk about, if we look at the phones, I'm going to go through phones, in-home, and schedule real quick. Yeah. I want to first start with phones. What do you believe is the most important thing a producer on here, that if they could do, or they could understand, or a belief that they might be able to evoke, what's the most important thing you believe that would help them go out there and increase their level of skill on the phones?
I think, one, if you were disciplined to understanding that dialing starts at 8 o'clock and that's your job, right? That's number one. And then number two, if you would keep tonality and questions as part of your quote unquote script, meaning keeping everything even keeled. And then at the end of every statement, ending it with a question to put the client in the position that they have to answer the question. And it keeps away the objection. I'm not talking to you and telling you who I am, what I'm doing, and do this. I'm giving you a statement and asking you a question at the end, which throws you off. And now you have to answer me. And it gets you more to the appointment, which is honestly the goal.
I love that, dude. I remember the first time it was like one of my first dial sessions, and the person that hired me said, dude, when they ask a question, always answer with a question. Don't just like pause and let them ask another question. Whoever asks the most questions is going to win. And I said, okay, got it. And so I got an objection and I didn't know what to say. And I said, so Steve, what color is your car? Honest to God, true story. And the guy says, it's red. I say, perfect. I got a 5 or a 7, which is better. Dude, I booked the appointment. What I realized is, dude, if you're asking questions, you're in control. And if you're in control, you're the one driving to where you want to go, that destination. If your destination is, I just want an appointment book, that's my chief objective. Well, you're going to get to the chief objective because you ask the questions and you stay in control. And so I love that, man. Now, if we look at in-home, what do you believe going into the home is the biggest thing that if they maybe you tweaked or adjusted or added or took away that allowed you to go out there and increase your ability to help more families in the home?
Two big things. One would be understanding your clientele and really learning who it is that we meet with, right? Middle America, busy people. They don't have a lot of time. So that leads you to where you have to keep it crazy simple, right? A lot of people think like I have like this mess, like, crazy in home with, PowerPoints and whatever. I'm crazy, crazy simple, crazy intentional because I understand my audience. I don't want to go over their head. I want to let them know kind of who I am, what I do. And then I want to guide them down the path. I want to, again, ask great questions to figure out their problem. But I think you have to focus there, because the easier you make simplified issue, right, which is what we do, the simpler you make it, the more the better shot you have at a closing ratio. And then the other side would be drawing emotion, which is something I struggled with early on. I think a lot of agents do. Don't make it transactional. Like I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, we have a hurricane in Florida, praying for everybody on the West Coast. I have a lady calls me up on a call-in lead, and she says, "Hey, I got that form for the insurance. I'm looking to get it." So I booked the appointment, and she goes, "Are you sure there's a hurricane?" And I'm like, I'll be all right. Like, it's fine. I'll drive. It's raining, whatever. Go out there, write her a pretty big policy. Just wanted to protect her daughter. And I harped on throughout the appointment, like all the things going on around us, the death, the destruction. And like, I didn't even need to in this one, but I made sure to do it, and it drew out the emotion and it got her to move.
I love that, dude. I think that, that could be used in every area. Like, I think, Steve, people understand that for themselves. They start to understand that, man, if I don't start looking through a lens in the future of what I desire, what I want, and almost imagine that taking place and feel myself experiencing that, then I'm going to continue to repeat the past. And that's what most people do, dude. They just continue to take the history that they've created and they make that history their future, because they keep moving from the same emotions, whether it's shame, guilt, not good enough, whatever it might be. And they go out there and they validate that feelings through the behavior that they have. And I like to always think that, dude, that's the same thing we can do in the home, right? They're not experiencing the death. But if we can do a good job through asking deep questions, getting emotional, painting pictures, which the financial inventory does, and then get them to live in that picture, we're taking something that they've not experienced, but we're creating such a very vivid imagination and vision of what it's going to look like. And through repeated questions and driving it deep, they're actually going to feel like they've experienced it. And they're more likely to take the actions that support that feeling that's evoked from something that's not yet been experienced, but it's been casted and envisioned, and it's been done with great detail. And that's the same thing to go out there in the home. And that's what you're saying, man. I think that's probably the biggest thing you could do to go out there and increase your close ratio, is to develop more value and show them more value through the picture that you create. Now, if we look at schedule, man, what do you think about, like, you said it like 8 a.m., treat it like a job. And dude, that's how I've always tricked myself in, is like, dude, this is a job. And if I was making, if I was getting paid a significant amount of income, and I knew if I didn't show up to these things that I know that need to be done and these disciplines throughout the day, then I'm going to lose that job. Dude, if I knew that, I would do it. So I always try to trick myself like that. Talk about your schedule. Like, what does your structure look like? Go through your kind of routine and going out there to help this many families, man, because be honest with you, bro, I'm interested. Like, how do you do that, dude? Like, that's pretty incredible. So if you can unpack that.
Yeah, don't sleep a lot, number one. So I'd say, for me, I'm big into, you have to have a lot of stamina to do this. Obviously, you have to be healthy, and I'm a like big kind of getting up, going to the gym from a physical perspective, and I think from a mental perspective. So I'm usually up around 4-ish every day. We'll say Monday to Saturday, and I'm up in the gym, hour and a half, whatever it is, and then kind of get my day rolling, have my leads going. So on a dialed day like today at the office, 8 a.m., typically 8 to 1, I'll be dialing and doing some call transfers now, kind of mixing that in, pop off a couple sales that way now, the virtual way. Then usually from, we'll say 1 to whatever, like we had a staff meeting today, I'll do some recruitment stuff for the team. Usually, record a podcast, what have you, on a Monday. And then Usually I'll go home, finish off the dialing, let's say a couple hours, have dinner, relax, whatever. And then in the field days are full days. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm typically trying to run, 8 appointments. Now, lead flow is a little different with the way things are going. So I have a little bit more call transfers in the mix of the day. Talking to agents throughout the day. It's it's a lot. It's exhausting. It's a lot of talking, as you know, and a lot of, grind. But the days are full. I'm probably in the field when I'm out there, 8 to 8, 9 to 9, something like that. Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of do the same, mundane thing on Thursday, and then run Friday, Saturday, and then usually Sunday, I'm home, family day. But I've done that very religiously for like whatever it is, almost 4 years now. And that effort over time adds up. And I can tell you this, to do what I do, there can't be a lot of white space. There just can't be.
All right. So your schedule now, when somebody hears it, they might think like, dude, that's insane. Like, how can you 4 a.m., all these things you're doing? For you now, is it almost like harder to not do that than it is to do it?
Oh yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to look at like, what are your goals and what are you looking to give up? Right. Like, yeah, cool. I could sleep in, you know what I mean? Like, but would I have the goals that I have? Would I have the things that I want to be able to have? And I don't think, you live your life, hey, we're going to, kind of work it forever type of a deal. But I knew what my goals were. I knew what I wanted. I knew that, I wanted my wife to be home to raise our kids and, building a business and all that stuff. I was willing to sacrifice that now for, a few years, right? We don't have to do that forever in the vehicle that we work.
Yeah. And I think that once you do it for so long, man, it almost becomes just like you're numb to it. Like, it's just, you want to create this, I guess this routine that becomes so systematic that it doesn't really feel painful anymore, because you just do it day in and day out. And
Right.
that's why I love that one quote that said, like, the common denominator of success is successful people form the habits of doing the things that failures don't like to do. The successful person didn't like to do it either, but they just did it long enough where it became just a part of the routine. And now it's just what they do. A couple quick questions that popped through. Can you give a deeper, can you go dive deeper into your lead diversity? Like, what does that exactly
Yeah.
look like?
So good amount of mortgage, and that's kind of, it's taken its, turns now with direct mail and, the refinances and everything, the rates. So mortgage, call transfers. I use a couple different companies with call transfers. I'll use like, there's a term lead, game time term that I'll mix in that. That's pretty much my mix, kind of those three right now. And then kind of going through the book of business. So I usually like to use three things if I can. So this way I'm diverse. If one's a little light, I can make it up somewhere else.
Okay. What live transfer company are you currently using?
I use all web leads.
Okay. And now, does that changed also? Like, were you using somebody else in the past, and then you gave them a shot, experimented with them, and worked out better, so you added them to what you're doing?
No, I actually started with them 8 months ago, maybe, kind of when we kind of went that whole virtual route. And I definitely wanted to get in on the mix. And one of the keys I'd say, if you're going to do that, I have like every state that they have turned on. I want to say it's like 20 states. So this way, while I'm dialing, I'll usually get on average, let's say from that 8 to 12, 8 to 1, I'll probably get like 5 of them. Let's say I close 2. Cool. There's a couple of families help to kind of springboard the week.
I love that, man. Well, I think that having like a philosophy of experimentation with lead strategy is important when things come up. And it doesn't hurt to give it a shot and then say, okay, does this work out better than this? And tweak, adjust, go back to, like, always have that thing evolving, right? So that way, you're kind of staying out ahead of stuff and you're not falling behind what might be working. Pauline's got a great question. She said, how do you continue to get better and try new things without messing up what is already working for you?
That's a very good question. I think you have to stick to your core of the things that work, but you also have to be open-minded enough. It's kind of like saying, if I would have ran this year the way I did the previous 3, where and say, oh, I'm just going to wait for all the mortgage to come, and then the mortgage don't come. Like, how I'd be dying a slow death right now, or a fast death right now. So I think you have to be cognizant of what works, but then be able to evolve, because the fact of the matter is this is an evolving business, right? When it comes to selling and recruiting. If we don't evolve, like so many businesses out there don't, we will perish. But you also don't want to lose who you are either. So there's kind of like a fine balance that you need to find there. And at the end of the day, I knew this. I just need volume. I don't really care where it comes from. Give me enough volume and I'll be okay.
I love that, dude. Let me just say this to encourage everybody, because I think that when whoever's watching this right now, you've got a ratio, right, Steve? Like, your ratio, you can kind of probably predict what you're going to write every single week, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Like, I knew at the beginning of the week, based off my lead strategy, based off of what hours I allotted to dial and run, what I was going to write. And the reason why I knew that is because I knew once I put it in my schedule, it was done. Because the only reason why your ratio doesn't work is if you don't actually work what the ratio requires, meaning that if I dial for X amount of hours, this many leads, I'll book 15 appointments. Well, if you only dial for half that amount of time, well, then your ratio is all screwed up because you didn't commit to what you knew you needed to commit to. But I knew the moment I put it down in my schedule, it was done. And I knew that because there's a ratio at hand, I knew exactly what I was going to make week in and week out. The one thing that most people don't account for, Stephen, as I've heard you talk, everything about what you said today, man, I just think about that 1% getting better and how you've done that every single day. And even if you wrote the same amount of volume this year as you did last year, my bet is that you were able to take more time and spend it in recruiting and building your business, because you can do that amount of volume in less time because you still got better. And that's what I did. I mean, it wasn't at that million, 1,000, 100,000 families a year. It wasn't at that, but every single year I was able to still go out there and on my own pen, write that $400,000 or $500,000 in premium and do it with less time because I was getting better. So everybody on here, if you're looking at your P&L, what you're investing, what you're getting back, just realize that when you get a little bit better on the phones, all you have to do is get a little bit better where you can book 2 more appointments out of the same leads that you typically get. And now that can go out there and bring in, based off the average sell and commission on the average comp, that could bring in an additional $1,000 in profit a week just by getting a little better on the phones. Or what if you get a little better and your show ratio goes up and you sit with 1 more family a week and you help 50% of the families you sit with? Well, now that's an extra 2 families a month. Now your income and profit just went up by maybe $2,000 to $3,000 for that given month. Or what if you get a little bit better in the home and your close ratio goes up by just 10%, just a little better? You stop getting to think about as much. You start evolving, adapting, getting just a little bit better. That's all pure profit. Or you get a little bit better with writing an additional spouse that you're sitting with the family because you're not as good at writing the additional policy. Or you get a little bit better at selling the ROP or writing an additional plan for final expense. Or you get a little bit better with getting a referral and calling that referral and making an additional. Or you get a little bit better with reviews. There's so many areas where you can just get a little bit better. And all of a sudden, that's all profit. It could look significantly different in the next 6 to 7 months than it does now when you just get a little bit better. And I just don't think people realize that how fast you could adapt and evolve and get a little bit better if you focus on getting 1% better day in and day out. And so I love that. And every bit of what you said, it had me thinking about that the entire time. Steve, as we wrap up, man, any kind of like departing tips, feedback, or suggestions you got to help the agent that's out there say, man, I want to go out and help more families?
Yeah, I think the number one thing for everybody is you came into this with belief. And I think a lot of times belief is hard when you struggle, right? And we all struggle, like everybody has, me, you, everybody will, right? The other key of a top producer to me is how do you manage the struggle and the adversity? I had an agent on my team I was just talking with on our manager call, and she was struggling a couple weeks. She had some agents on her team that, they just weren't doing anything. And then she's getting a lot of declines. And I just kind of spoke to her about like getting back to basics and believing in what she was doing and who she was. And we tweaked a couple things. And then lo and behold, helps like 16 families this week, And so I think if you're whatever level you're at here, believe and understand you're in the right spot, believe and understand that days will be hard and challenging. But the key is can you continue to persevere? Can you continue to move forward and not get lost in the mundane of the loss? You know, like you will lose. You will lose a lot. Losing is okay. Losing is not the end of the world. You have to keep it moving. I think a lot of times people, they lose and then they, like you said earlier, they give it less effort. Whereas that's where you have to give it more effort. And by giving it more effort and giving it everything you got, there's no way you can't be successful here. If you legit give it everything you got, you're going to be okay.
I love it, dude. Well, man, I don't think that could have been said any better, man. So I appreciate you hopping on and serving the team today. I know that everybody on here, you got enough where you probably feel convicted. Like, dude, I got to share this thing. I got to share
Oh yeah.
this because there's somebody out there that needs to hear this. And if I don't share this, maybe they don't hear this. And so, guys, make sure to share it, like, subscribe, and comment below. And if you got any questions for Steve, shoot them over to me and I'll shoot them to him, and we'll see if we can respond back to the comments with the answers that the questions that you've got. And so, Steve, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for jumping on, dude.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. You're the man.
All right, guys, be strong, stay steadfast. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.